Okay, we will go ahead and get started since it's 6:04. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the very first virtually O'Neill event. Hopefully you can all hear me okay. I see Christina. So the first event is Disinfecting 101 with Christina Mott-Lal. My name is Emily Wilson Gillespie, and I'm the Assistant Director of Alumni Relations at the O'Neill School. We are so glad that you're here with us this evening to kick off this first event. Like I said, it's the first one for our alumni engagement series, and we're encouraging you to watch out for upcoming events. And those include USA Jobs 101 and Birding 101. That one's coming in November. If you have any ideas for future presentations, or if you yourself are interested in presenting, please reach out to me directly. We are always looking for new ideas. Tonight, I want to welcome Christina Mott-Lal. Christina is a 2012 MPA MSES alum and is currently the environmental protection specialist with the EPA. Additionally, Christina is a member of our O'Neill School's Alumni Board of Directors. Christina is going to start with the presentation and follow up with some time for questions. Feel free to ask those over audio or through the chat and I can relay them. And I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Christina. Thanks.
Great, thanks, Emily. Hi, everybody. As Emily said, my name is Christina Mott-Lal, and I'm very happy I have the chance to speak to you today. A little bit about me. I have been working at the EPA now for just over 5 years. I've moved into a couple of different roles, which has been really wonderful to learn about the agency. And I just recently finished up a stint in the Office of Pesticides, and I was the team leader and the communications lead for everything COVID for the agency. So that was whirlwind. I learned a lot, and I'm really happy that I can be here today to share with you a lot of the things that I learned during my time in that position. I didn't prepare like a super formal PowerPoint. This is more like I'm going to share my screen and walk through some very helpful websites and tools that the EPA has for you to learn a little bit more about disinfectants and which ones can be helpful in preventing the spread of SARS-CoV-2, which is the novel coronavirus that causes COVID-19. A quick disclaimer on the front of that, CDC, who everyone says the most important thing you can do to prevent the transmission is to wear a mask. Disinfecting alone is not enough. The number one thing you can do is to wear a mask because it is a respiratory disease, and that is the most common form of transmission. There's actually been very few, less than a dozen cases of contamination happening from touching a contaminated surface. So this is just one tool in the tool belt, but it's a very helpful tool, but wear a mask. That's the disclaimer. Okay. So I will just get started by saying that it has just recently happened within the last month and a half that testing has been done with products against COVID-19, SARS-CoV-2 itself. There are over 450 products that the EPA has registered that are able to combat SARS-CoV-2. The interesting thing about this is that there are different levels of viruses, and different products are registered to work against different ones. And COVID-19 is extremely harmful because of how easily it is transmitted, but it's not actually one of the more harmful coronaviruses that has existed. So one very good thing about the products that are on the list that I'm about to show you is that they've been tested against viruses that are as hard or even harder to kill than SARS-CoV-2. So if you see anything on this list, even though it doesn't specifically say on the label that it will work, if it's on this list I'm about to show you, it will work. And my little example, I call it my quarantine example, is about wine, because of course it has to be about wine because it's quarantine. If you spilled wine on your carpet and you spilled a red wine and you spilled a rosé, what you would use to clean up the red wine would also work against the rosé. I know it's not a great example, but it's the one that I have. And that is to say that if something is on the list that can work against polio, it will definitely work against SARS-CoV-2 or COVID-19. And so that's sort of how this breakdown happened. So with that, I'm going to share my screen and walk everyone through list N, which is what we call it. I think this is what I want to do. Okay, can you see that? Okay, I'm getting a heads up from, okay. All right, so this is list N, which is the list of disinfectants that you can use against SARS-CoV-2, which is COVID-19. I will use them interchangeably, but they're the same thing. And this list, as I said, has over 450 products on it. And so what I'm just going to walk you through really quickly is how to find a product you can use, but most importantly, to find out if a product that you have will work. So the main page here, and this is the link you can see here, but honestly, if you just Google list N EPA, you'll also make your way here. The big thing that we do is we search by registration number. So every product that is registered with the EPA, and that's big, it needs to be registered with us, has its registration number that is clearly printed on the label. Oh, you know what? I shouldn't have shared my screen so quickly because I should have showed you where it is. I'm gonna stop sharing really quick and show you an example. So this is my off-brand wipes from Target. So the label, so they can be anywhere on the label, but they are listed. If you'll see, I don't know if you can see that, it says EPA REG number. So the number on this one is 6836-336, and then dash a couple of other numbers. So I'm going to reshare again. Okay, that should be good. So whenever you're looking for your product on our list, you will use the first two sets of numbers. The last set is just a distribution number that's more for sales on the back end. It has nothing to do with the actual registration of the product itself. So I'm going to type that in from here, 6836-336. And it came up. So I'm going to close this guy. All right. So as you can see, it says wipes. So that's good. So there's a couple of pieces of information in here that I just want to walk through really quick because they're very helpful in terms of disinfecting. So you want to make sure that the formulation type matches. So we've got this. Surface types, there are multiple surface types, and we'll go through that in a minute, but you want to make sure that whatever you're using is appropriate for the surface you want it to work on. So I would not use a wipe on something like a jacket because fabric is considered porous. So non-porous and porous means if, you know, moisture, water, anything can get through on it or not. So a plastic table would count as hard, non-porous. These are the areas you can use it in. Some products are only appropriate for healthcare, some for a business, and some can be used in the home, but not all. So it's important to take a look at what you have. So this product itself has been tested against SARS-CoV-2 or against COVID-19. Some of them don't have it. So I bought this product before a new label went onto it. But I know that it works, so I just have to follow the instructions. And one of the big things I want to draw your attention to is this column right here, which is extremely important, which is contact time. One thing we've learned is that people will use a disinfectant, they'll spray it, and they'll wipe it off immediately. And you should not do that. You should always follow the label direction, either from here on list N or from the label itself about how long it should stay on before you wipe it off. And one of the reasons for that is, especially for porous surfaces, there is a lot of problems with it not penetrating below the very top of it. And we know that these viruses can get into pockets and sit and wait. And so you really want to make sure that when you wipe or when you spray, you leave it on for the recommended contact time because it has been laboratory independently tested to do that. So it's important to follow that. All right. Does anybody have any questions? Sorry, I know I went through a lot, so let me know if you need me to slow down or if you need me to clarify anything. No? Okay. So the second thing I wanted to show you is that this browser page has also been turned into a launchable tool. So over here, you'll see view list ends information in our new tool. And this is actually much more user-friendly if you're on your smartphone. We were finding that this website was a little clunky and a little hard for people to move through. So we created a tool that it's a web-based tool, but it works really well on your personal cellular device because a lot of people are looking up products when they're in the store, trying to figure things out. So we wanted to create a tool that was a little easier for that. So this is what the tool looks like. Hit launch. And you can search by a lot of the same stuff that was on the original tool. So I could also search here for the one that we just used, 6836-336. And as you'll see, I'm only entering the first set of numbers and the second set. Again, some of them might have a third set of numbers. You don't need to enter those. And actually, if you do, you might not get results. So show results. So it's giving me the same thing, all of the same information all across here. Again, 4 minutes, follow the directions for this. But if you have a product that doesn't have it listed on the label itself, that's completely fine. You just need to know that you need to leave it on for 4 minutes. So this has everything you need here. Okay. So there is that. That's list N. And again, I said it has over 450 products on it, which is really great. And now I want to show you if you, just another tool that's kind of in the toolbox. Sorry, it's having a hard time seeing it. Okay, so there is a group that the EPA partners with called NPIC, and NPIC has this product research online system. And this is another way to sort of search, but this way you can do it by product name. So one thing that's really important to know is EPA does not endorse any products. So we very rarely will say, use this product, use another product, or, you know, we won't recommend that you use something. We recommend what's on the list, but we won't say a specific product name. So this is a really easy way for you to figure out also if your product is on the list or if you're thinking about buying a certain product as well. If you don't know the registration number yet, but you might know the product name. So one that's really common for people is 7th generation. So if you enter it into this system, you'll see that a whole set comes up. And then what you can do is this number here is the registration number. So let's say you have, you know, this 7th generation and you want to know if this product is on the list. If you don't have the registration number right in front of you, you can look up the name of the product and you'll find like, oh, okay, so this is a disinfecting kitchen cleaner. So then I can move this. I don't know how to move this little box from the top. I'm sorry. You can go over, and if I enter this number, this first 3 into the list, it will pop up because it is registered. So these are 3 different ways that you can help to figure out if something is on list end and therefore will be effective against SARS-CoV-2, aka COVID-19. The other thing I want to draw your attention to really quickly is that there are a lot of fact sheets on the website, a lot of fact sheets. So if you ever have any additional questions, you feel free to reach out to me, but there's also still have questions, see our FAQs facts list, and there's a whole set of questions here. How do I know that it works? Can I use common household cleaners? Can disinfectants be used on people? The answer to that is no. It's always no, don't do that. And then some other things here that we use for companies and then also for import and export. So one of the ones that I wanted to pull your attention to is how do you know if a product on Listen works against SARS-CoV-2? And this is what I was talking about before. It's been tested against SARS-CoV-2 itself, a pathogen that is harder to kill, or a different human coronavirus similar. So these are all things that we know, if you follow the label direction, especially the contact time, will be effective in disinfecting against SARS-CoV-2, the novel coronavirus that causes COVID-19. So those were the major resources I really wanted to share. I don't know if, if that was enough. Is there any questions? Are there any questions?
Yeah, hey, so this is Bill Jones. I have a question about how long you leave it on the surface.
Mhm.
So like I have some like not an aerosol, a pump spray bottle that I like put on a counter, and it says it's effective against COVID-19.
Mhm.
But this leave it on there for 4 minutes. So if I spray it on and then wipe it around the counter, is that still effective if I don't like dry it and wipe it off? Or because when I spray it on, I don't cover 100% of the surface.
Gotcha. So what we recommend is to make sure that when you're spraying, you spray enough that you can sort of see that it's moist. And then you want to let it sit for the amount of time that is designated on the label or on Listen. So the one I showed you was 4 minutes, but that's just for like this product. Each product has their own contact time. So you want to see that it's visibly wet, and then you want to leave it. So if you spray it and then you start to wipe it around, you've already absorbed some of it, and it doesn't have the chance to sit and penetrate, which is what it really needs time to do.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Christina, I'm wondering if you could talk a little more about different surfaces. So we know that different surfaces have different, I guess, lifespans for the virus.
Mhm.
So is there any way you could talk a little bit more about that and how, I guess it probably wouldn't affect the amount of time that a spray is sitting on a surface, but I guess just a little bit more about surfaces.
Yeah, for sure. We have a little section that I can direct you to, but I'll just talk a little bit about it while I find it. So there are 3 main types of surfaces. So you see this hard non-porous. Okay, this is a good one. So you can see that this one says hard non-porous and then contact food, so there's ones that you can kind of rinse your food in if you're a little worried, but it's more of like a post rinse. So you can like dip it and then wash it off really quickly. Again, that's not as common. So be very nervous, be very careful about that. Let me pull this up. So here's the little thing about the types, it's 4 now, surface types. So this one has like little examples about it. So again, non-porous is, a lot of metals, plastic, stuff of that nature. Wood is porous if it's untreated, and your fabric like a jacket or your couch. And then these can be used on surfaces where a post rinse is required. So like countertops, stuff that your food will touch. And then the no rinse as well. So there's 2 different types. You really want to use a post rinse, so that's why I was saying you spray it and then you want to make sure you rinse it off and stuff. I found for the food contact ones, spraying works really well, wiping works really well. I personally, like I was kind of saying, I like to create a solution that I will sort of dip like a dish in or a utensil in. And I have no rinse ones that I use, so then I just let them dry. But post rinse is also very effective as well. But yeah, I think it just depends on how it's formulated. I personally sort of make a little dip out of it, but it's just just following the contact time in the label. So that's where you find. And then actually, that's a really great question, Emily. So if you have any questions about any of the columns or any of the designations that we use, you can click on these little eyes and they'll open it. So there's also use sites. We have the 3: healthcare, institutional, and homes and residential.
Christina, I just got out of class, and so I've just signed on. My apologies for being late, and hello to the other alums who are here. Just, yes. Yes, so what has been the most interesting question so far?
I believe it was Bill Jones who asked about contact time and surfaces. And so I'm really, really glad that you asked that, because I think there are some misconceptions about spraying and leaving and wiping. And it's kind of interesting because we have wipes themselves. And so I think the wipe mentality has really gotten into people's heads that like, oh, if it's wet, it'll be fine. But wipes are formulated differently than sprays. And so when you spray, you need it to stay visibly moist for the contact time and then to wipe off. And just another like extra precaution, if you look at a surface and you can see that there is visible residue on it, whatever it might be, just doing a really quick clean with soap and water first before disinfecting also helps a lot. But don't clean with soap and water after you disinfect, because then you can negate the work of the disinfectant itself. Get them right. Don't switch.
Hey, Christina, it's Bill again. So another question. So I see Microban is a product that is advertised that it like stays on the surface and kills bacteria for a longer period of time. Is that true? Is there products that like that?
As of when I departed from that role about 3.5 weeks ago, and at that time we had only tested residual claims, which is what they're called. They'll stay residually and do it against one product, and that was the one that was being used on airplanes by American Airlines, and that was even an emergency exemption use, meaning we don't necessarily know if it's as effective as they say it is. So if you see a product that says that it has that residual time, there's a chance that it probably shouldn't say that. I'm not as familiar with Microban, to be honest, but we've had to actually bring up quite a few enforcement cases against companies saying that they have products that will sit and continue to kill the virus over a certain amount of time. And there's a difference between killing, which is a very strong claim to make, and being resistant to it. And so if you say a product that says, you know, can help a surface be resistant, that's one thing. If you see a product that says continues to kill the virus for 72 hours, there's a very good chance that that's not true.
Yeah, I think Microban says it's resistant, so it probably falls under that category.
Yeah, and some of these, and that's why there's also different use sites. Some need longer times. And the thing is, it's also just a larger conversation and overall consideration for, you know, operations in the US. The first priority is making sure healthcare institutions have what they need. And so there are also a lot of products out there that are specifically marketed towards residential in order to free up products for things like healthcare institutions and larger space, you know, cleaning as well. So there's mostly residual claims, if we've had any, or, you know, the ones that we've come through airplanes. A lot of the ones that have been brought to the EPA that we are currently in the phase of testing to see whether or not it does actually work residually has mostly been for healthcare, because they're the ones who really need it the most. And then, you know, we as just individual citizens, you know, our disinfecting routine is actually pretty simple if you follow the label. So a lot of residual claims I don't think are being focused right now for residential, but more for healthcare.
Okay, thanks.
Christina, I was curious, you know, you see video clips on the news of people, you know, all up in suits, and they have these spray cans, and they're, you know, going around and disinfecting spaces, or supposedly doing that. Do you have a sense of what that is that they're using, and is it effective? I mean, I've seen them walk through what I would say kind of one thing that comes to mind is like a food street market type area, and they're disinfecting the whole space. And so I'm just always curious, you know, how impactful or effective is that, what they're doing?
It really depends on, we actually had quite a big back and forth with this because, again, kind of talking about making sure you're using what's on the label. What you're talking about is an electrostatic sprayer, the big spray things that you see coming through. And not every product is meant to be used in those because it disperses them differently. It can change the composition if it hasn't been cleaned thoroughly. There's a lot of different considerations there. And so as long as the product they are using, I'm assuming it is, but the product that they're using in that sprayer is actually meant for use in the sprayer, then yes, it will be effective. But one thing we were running into is people were buying the sprayers and just putting any disinfectant in it, and you can't do that. It has to be labeled for use in that sprayer in order for us to be able to speak to its efficacy. And so we need more work, I think, a little bit in making that memo a little bit clearer, but mostly citizens are not supposed to be doing large scale disinfecting like that. They should be hiring a service who then would know what to do. But if someone were to try and get their own electrostatic sprayer and do it, we actually ran into some cases where people were using like the pump things that they use for like weeds in their lawn. And they were like cleaning those out and putting disinfectants and like doing that. We're like, don't do that. Oh my gosh, don't do that. But yeah, it's one of those things where if a product is formulated and it, the label will say how you can and can't use it. Most citizens should be just using what we call RTUs, ready to use products, which include the spray bottles already, the wipes, all of that stuff. And then when you have institutional, which is one of the use sites, if they want to go forward, so like you're talking about a market or a school, they should be hiring professionals who know what to do. And if that product is listed for electrostatic sprayers, then yes, it will be effective.
What are your thoughts on there's been some recent conversations about, is it the ultraviolet light? And how to see, since you know all the space so well, I thought you might have some insider opinion about that as well. Yeah,
so it is not as effective as disinfecting, and also EPA, Office of Pesticides, they don't regulate devices like that, mostly because they are relatively ineffective compared to a lot of other methods. And so my personal opinion would be, again, EPA does not give endorsements. I'm not in this role anymore. I'm not an expert. I have a lot of disclaimers to make, but from what I've seen, and there is information on our website about how we don't regulate devices such as lights or even filters. Since they haven't been tested against these things, we haven't gone through laboratory testing. They haven't been through independent verification. They have not been registered with the EPA for these uses. We cannot speak to their efficacy. And a big part of that is they can be false or misleading claims. So my personal opinion, this is just me, if I were to walk in somewhere and they would say, we disinfected with a UV light, I would turn around and go away. Because that can't be the only method of disinfecting based on efficacy standards from the EPA to make me feel comfortable based on what I know.
Thank you. I appreciate your also your personal insight and opinion on that.
So this is not my parents, but a friend's parents are very worried about their mail and potentially some sort of infection or anything on the mail. Is there something that they should be thinking about? Or is there really something to worry about when they pick up their mail?
Yeah, that's a good question. And that question also, I think is in conjunction with people who are worried about getting takeout food delivered, if they should wipe down their groceries. My suggestion is you don't necessarily need to be spraying down or wiping down everything. Paper is a porous surface, so if they feel the need, I would find a am I still sharing my screen? I think so. So under the surface types, porous, paper is considered porous. I would search by porous in this thing here. And there's a couple of different, I don't know, maybe I hope this isn't in the way. But you can see there's a couple of different ones. So if they are very concerned, they could search by porous to find something that would work for them. But one thing that we've really learned is the virus does not sit on products, especially things like paper, for more than probably a few hours. So there are a couple of methods. They can find a disinfectant that's meant to be used on paper, and they can spray or wipe it down based on the formulation type. They can also handle any materials, again, even if it's your groceries or whatever, handle them, put them away, and then wash your hands immediately is really one of the biggest things that you can do. You can use gloves when you handle them and then wash your hands. There's, a couple of different things that you can use to combine it. Again, there have been very, 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 very few cases of people contracting the disease by touching a contaminated surface, because they've done really good jobs in a lot of spheres and people are doing good jobs in their homes. So that's one way we know that we're controlling it. Don't smell the mail. That's one thing I would say. Don't lick it. I don't know if anybody does that, but mostly touching things and touching your face or coming in contact and breathing something in really intensely, that's one of the, that is the largest form of transmission. So I personally don't fear that sort of interaction, but there are definitely ways to prevent for it. So this package that I have here is hard non-porous. So a lot of wipes are not, people use wipes very liberally. I know people wipe down their groceries, they wipe down their mail, that kind of stuff. If you do that, that's fine, but still wash your hands. What I sometimes fear is that people use these products or like things like hand sanitizer and they think, oh, I'm good. And they just kind of go about things. And it's much more persistent of a virus than that. And so it's good to use sanitizer after you come in from somewhere. If you want to wipe your mail down with a wipe, I can't stop you, but you should still wash your hands. Like that stuff still exists. If they want to spray their mail and leave it for the contact time, then it'll be fine. But they should still wash their hands. Everyone should still wear a mask.
Okay, I'm going to ask another one. So, I'm teaching in person and Zoom and in person. And so one of the things that is the responsibility of the students at IU and faculty is to clean our areas after we've been in class. And so at O'Neill in Bloomington, at least, we have bottles of disinfectant and paper towels. And so some students will spray their paper towel and then go back and wipe down their area, their desk and their chair. Other students will go and spray it and wipe it down. Is there, at the moment, IU is reporting that they're not seeing any transmission of COVID from the classroom at this point. They've not done any, not traced it where it's being transmitted in the classroom. But I was wondering, how does that sound, that sort of this plan to kind of clean areas for what the students are doing?
So I have two thoughts on that. The first one would be, if you spray if you spray into the paper towel and then you wipe, you've already denigrated your efficacy quite a bit, because a lot of it is absorbed in the towel. It's not going to get to where it needs to be. So kind of getting back to Bill's question before, you should spray it depending on the product, which you can find on list N, see what your contact time is, which you can let them know depending on what it is. They should spray it and let it sit. Wow. And then after the contact time, that's when they should wipe it up. It's a big part of it. It's got to sit.
I'm going to have to go look at this, because students, once class is done, they're ready to clean their area and go. So the contact time could be interesting.
it can stay for longer. So, I mean, a possible solution is that when students are done, they could spray their area and leave. And then depending on how, then it's done. And then depending on how long it's taking for classes to move in between, as long as it's been a certain amount of time, that's also fine. Then the, responsibility of the student coming in would then be, they can just wipe when they sit down, and when they leave also spray. Because you could spray something and leave it for a while, as long as you don't eat off of it, right? Because then there's also the food surfaces and stuff. But contact time really is a minimum amount of time that something should sit on it. There's no real maximum time. And then the other thing I'll say is, if you have, spray bottle solutions and stuff, making sure that it's making sure it's on list N to begin with, just because it says disinfectant. I'm sure the university's buying good things, but just to be cautious about that. And then my second question is everyone wearing masks during class? So that is actually why I would say there's probably less transmission rate than anything else. I mean, keep disinfecting, it's still really great, but they need to be used in correlation with each other. So if you were disinfecting and not using masks, you'd probably see cases. And if you were wearing masks and not disinfecting, the chances of seeing cases would be lower, but it would still be too much of the risk to take. So both in conjunction are great together. But just, I am often worried about false hope, that people get with, I use sanitizer, I wipe down with a Clorox wipe, I sprayed and, it's fine. It's not, they need to be used together.
Yes, right now for IU, if you're in a building, you have to have on a mask unless you're in a private office with the door closed, and then you can take your mask off. And the students have been doing really well at that.
I definitely trust Beyonds to do that, or O'Neillers, or whatever we're called now.
I think we can still go with Beyonds. It's okay.
I actually have another question for you, Christina. So I feel like at the beginning of folks going into quarantine and the pandemic, we heard a lot about mixing chemicals and what household chemicals not to mix. And so do you have any tips on general, do not mix these common household mistakes?
Yeah, the overarching advice is always don't mix anything. A lot of things are already pre-mixed for you. Don't mess with that nonsense. But EPA does not actually handle most of that, so you'll find a lot of the information for that on CDC's website. So we worked in conjunction with them on creating some guidelines, but they really took the lead on that because mixtures are not registered with us, and so it's not really our area to regulate. We really only regulate registered products and then create enforcement actions against products that are making pesticidal claims, which kills a virus is a pesticidal claim. So the mixture of chemicals, we've kind of run into that because there are people who are mixing bleach with things. And our big thing is don't mix. Don't do it, it's a bad idea. But there are ways to dilute bleach solutions. There are things of that nature, but the guidelines for that are on CDC's website. Thank you.
If I may, I'd like to just, I guess, make some comments, if that's all right. This is Alan. And please forgive me, I've been kind of doing some different things this evening, so I've been kind of catching bits and pieces. So I agree with a lot of what Christina has been talking about. There was a question earlier about UV light, which was an excellent question. And again, I don't know, I'm probably speaking to the choir here. I'm sure you probably all know this, but in my line of work, I agree that mechanical means of disinfection may not always be a something to have a lot of confidence in. For example, there was a bed and breakfast, and because of the establishment that it was, and they were on a private water well, they had to submit quarterly water samples to the state for testing, and those samples have to come back satisfactory for different bacteria and viruses. And they were treating their water supply with UV light. And those samples, they were fine for a while, but then they started failing. And so then they had to test more often, and they kept failing. They couldn't figure it out. They were like, well, we've got a UV light. It's, that's supposed to take care of everything. So there was a problem with the UV light mechanism that was not allowing the actual light to travel through and hit the water as it was passing through. So it wasn't killing all the bacteria and the viruses that were in the water. So it's always good to have, I think, maybe more chemical means maybe to deal with the coronavirus. And then also, and I don't know if you mentioned this, Christina, or not, but I'm sure everybody knows here. It, again, in my work, we're always preached to, and I preach to people, the label is the law. So it's always important to follow the label, make sure it's registered with the Environmental Protection Agency, and follow those directions. And also be aware and read the labels. There were some products several years ago that were part of what I do also is in vector control. So several years ago, we were having a significant increase in bed bug issues. There were products that were labeled for bed bugs and that they would work, but they were aerosol bombs. And they also worked very well with fleas. They work great for those target pests, but bed bugs, when they're not feeding, they're tucked away, hidden in real tight areas. So an aerosol bomb is not going to do any good on bed bugs. And those products were not registered with the EPA either. So just, I guess if anything, that, and then also I've come across issues where people, they get really paranoid and they will over apply product, and they can do harm to themselves, their family members, pets, those types of things as well. So that's, just like Christina was saying earlier, follow the label, make sure you're doing everything that it says. And that's, I think, kind of the comments that I have. So thank you.
Thanks, Alan. Yeah, I very much appreciate that. We preach exactly the same thing at the EPA: follow the label, always look, follow the label. And then actually, just really quickly too, I'll share this NPRO site that I showed you. When you click on something, it also has the latest federal label there for you to view. So if you have a product, and one of the reasons we also have this is, like, if you have a household product and like the label's a little damaged, you can't really read it, this is a very helpful tool. And the other thing that it's helpful for, and this is just sort of an overarching way that product registration works at the EPA, but there is something called the master label, and then there's the product label. So the master label for any pesticide or pesticidal application has this, it's a very, very long label. It's got a lot of pieces of information in there. But as you know, the products that you have don't have pages and pages of labels. So the product label will give you what you need to know in terms of like what it could possibly kill, how to use it, that kind of stuff. But the master label will have more in-depth information. And so if you grab a product and it's on list N and it says, follow the directions for blank virus, and that virus isn't listed on the product label, that's okay. You can come find, and you can even just Google it. It's very easy to get to it and find the federal label, and then it'll show you things like the contact time. So I'm really glad you brought that up, Alan. I'm very happy you brought that up, because yeah, the label is the law, and you can find the label very easily if your product label itself is damaged, or if it doesn't list the virus that list N says that it should. You can make your way through to it very easily.
And does the Environmental Protection Agency website, some of these disinfectants, do they have safety data sheets as well online? Or no?
We do have some online. SDSs are more at the purview of the company if they want it to be listed online. We don't require that they make that information publicly available, but you can always request a safety data sheet from a company itself. You can always contact the EPA, and I'll show you here since I think I'm still sharing. At
Okay.
home thing here, we've got
And maybe I didn't know if that was necessarily.
conventional.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And then we've got a couple of different things here about how to contact us up and down through here. So you can find our contact information, you know, for different divisions. My little thing is, I can't see, I don't know if I can see what you guys are seeing. But for information, you know, you can contact people. So we don't require the release of an SDS, but it can be made publicly available upon request. I'm gonna stop sharing now. I think that's okay.
As soon as you stop sharing, though, someone's going to have a question where you have to share again.
It's simple.
Oh, has anyone asked about trick or treating? Did you hear my question?
Oh.
Unless someone has a, you know,
Yeah,
we have 9
I heard
minutes
trick or
left.
treating.
Uh-oh, I think Christina froze. Oh, there you are.
Sorry, with my internet, it was working fine, and all of a sudden it's like, no, I don't like you. I'm gonna turn my video off and see if that helps. Sometimes it helps a little bit. So was it about trick or treating?
Yeah, we only have 8 minutes left, and I don't want to take up if someone else has a question or thoughts or something. But if not, yeah, we're coming up on Halloween, and I believe the CDC is recommending, just recommending not doing trick or treating, and had other suggestions for ways that individuals can celebrate and enjoy Halloween. But I must admit, I do enjoy giving candy out and talking to the neighborhood kids and finding out what they're dressed as because they're so creative. So it was good. I'm slightly disappointed.
Yeah.
Oh, we do have a question in the any thoughts on cleaning inside the car after service visit and leather seats?
Yes. So we actually had that question because people were wondering if they could just maybe fog or spray the entire inside of their car and be done. And the answer to that is no, because there's multiple surface types that are in a car. And so for leather seats, that would be considered a porous material. So I would find, because it's a fabric, so I would find any disinfectant on list N that can be used and then follow the label for how to disinfect for that. Did that answer your question? I hope that.
Laura, did that answer your question? Yes.
Okay. And then I actually had a thought on the trick-or-treating thing, because Halloween is one of my favorites. I did think about, okay, well, a candy wrapper is probably considered a non-porous surface, but on the flip side that it would by any chance have a hole in it or something, I wouldn't want to disinfect it. And since I couldn't necessarily know for 100% that it's not porous, I wouldn't want to put anything on it that could maybe transfer to the food underneath. And so that in itself was enough for me to say, I don't want to wipe down candy bars. I don't want to do anything with that. And I don't want to spray it and leave it or anything. It's just, I don't know what a wrapper, what the material would be made out of. And I could guess, but I don't feel comfortable making that guess. So I'm just gonna refrain.
Thank you. I appreciate your logic. It makes sense. Oh, well.
Yeah. No, I was also thinking like, man, this sounds so terrible. I could like throw candy at people from like afar. I don't want to launch things, and I don't want to wipe it down in case like a kid puts it in their mouth or something. Like, I just think it's best not to mess with it.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing about launching candy and all that sort of stuff. So, yeah, you're right about, disinfecting and all of that. Oh, well. We have 5 minutes left. Are there any other just burning questions?
Have there been any extensive studies on how long this virus can live outside the body on surfaces or different surfaces before it itself just dies with no disinfecting or intervention?
Yes, there has been. So the thing is, the window is it's very vague. Basically, it's hours to days, and it depends on the surface. It depends on the temperature. It depends on direct sunlight. It depends on humidity. There's a lot of different factors that can go into it, and also a consideration too is the actual concentration of the virus itself. There's a difference if you touch something and then you touch something, it will most likely disperse within hours, but if you sneezed on something and you had it, it could live for days. And so it's really, there's so many factors about the time frame on it. There's no way to know. There's really no way to know for sure. But yeah, the very large time is hours to days, which is not super helpful.
So we just have 2 minutes left, so I think it's a perfect time to sort of wrap up. We greatly appreciate Christina kicking off our Virtually O'Neill series, being our guinea pig and also helping us name Virtually O'Neill series. So thank you.
Yes, I was very, what's the word? Floored. And I was like, oh my God, look at that. No, I mean, it's been great. Thank you so much for having me. I've been really appreciative of being involved through the Alumni Board of Directors. Just joined that, which has been awesome. Definitely encourage other people to get involved and get on board. I will say that this was not threatening or terrible. I was really nervous going in, but everyone was really sweet. So if you want to give one, I can say from firsthand experience, you should do it. This is great. So yeah, I appreciate everyone taking the time. And then Emily and Lori, you guys can feel free to share my my personal email with people if they have any follow-up questions or anything they want to ask. And then yeah, I'll send you some links for follow-up stuff as well. But yeah, I'm happy to do it.
Perfect.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you very much. And I just encourage everyone to just watch our social media and the other information we send out for our future virtually O'Neill events. Excellent. And so I hope everyone has a lovely rest of your Wednesday evening. Thank you all very much.
Bye. Thank you.